Yeah.
Just a dusting of snow. All right, let's get started this evening. Sorry, I cannot be there with you. I would prefer being there than in Olympia, believe me. So I'll call this meeting to order. And Daniel, do you want to go through the public comment expectations as we get this started?
Sure. So when you open the public comment, anybody from the public that's signed in can raise their hand, ask to be recognized, say your name and where you're from, and then say your comments. And people online can just raise their hand, and I'll look up for that and allow me to speak.
Okay, and if you're on phone, you *6 to mute and unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. So with that, I think we're probably ready to go ahead. Although it's not on the agenda, we normally have a session here at the first part of our agenda to hear public comment for items that are not on our agenda. Is there anybody here that would like to offer public comment?
So is the hop camp going to be on the agenda today? I didn't see it listed specifically.
It's item 2.
What?
It's item 2.
Okay, that's where I have comment for. Hello.
Yes, Mary.
Oh.
I'm waiting to be recognized like a chicken.
We probably can't see you.
Okay, thank you, Mary Rapar Stevenson. I'm going to bring up an issue that has peeved me for a while, and I hope that the Planning Commission takes this up for future development in our communities. As you know, I've spoken about Lasher before, Lasher Street, and the fact that houses were allowed to be built so close to the road that there's no room for a sidewalk on the west side of the street. Instead, if the proposal is to put it on the east side, and I think we have some easement there. But if we're going to be equitable, all the houses should have room for sidewalks. And I'm not quite sure why the driveways were so short, so that even when a truck, not even a dually, is parked there, their butt sticks out in the street. And so in the future, I think that has to be a development rule, that you can't do that kind of stuff. And you should leave room for sidewalks in the future and that. So just something for your work agenda, perhaps in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Anyone else? Okay, not hearing anyone else. I have a brief announcement. I was appointed to fill a vacancy on the city council, and this will be my last planning commission meeting. And I don't know whether Mayor Taylor is with us this evening, but she will be looking for a replacement planning commission member here over the next several weeks, hopefully, so that you are fully up to strength. But that will also ultimately leave the position as chair of the planning commission open. August is our vice chair currently, but you may want to hold election for officers. You may want to wait until after you have another planning commission member appointed to fill that vacancy. But I just thought I'd lay that out to you. Hopefully I'll continue to hear from you and be supportive of your efforts on the planning commission. So with that,
wow, I go out of town and all kinds of stuff happens. Congratulations, Jeff.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you.
Congratulations, and we'll miss you.
Well, I'll miss you guys, but I'm still hopeful that that I'll be able to maintain contact with the Planning Commission. There is a provision for perhaps a transitional period where I may be able to be, even as a council member, an ex officio member of the Planning Commission, which, if the Planning Commission is interested in that, it could be a transitional thing. I don't want to to get in the way of a new chair for the commission, but if it would be helpful, I would certainly talk to Jenny Taylor about doing that. That's a provision in the city code for that ex officio member. So moving ahead, we have minutes for approval.
Yep, I have read the minutes from the February 9th, 2026 meeting, and I motion for approval of said minutes.
Thank you, Ann. Who seconded? Who's
August
I
did.
did.
August? Any further discussion? Well, all those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries.
Aye.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is conditional use permit 2025-003. This is the application submitted by Wesley Houston. He has some additional information to share with us. I posed a question to Mayor Taylor and to the city attorney. I was confused. Mandy in the legal postings in the paper noted that this hearing was being continued from last month, but our agenda simply states that it's to receive input from Wesley. And I don't want to set us up a situation here where we take an action that someone can challenge us on some procedural lapse. I haven't heard back from Robert with regard to that, but I'd kind of leave that up to the Planning Commission as to whether or not, after we hear what Wesley wants to share with us tonight, whether or not you want to sort of continue this to a more formal hearing announcement at our next meeting, or at your next meeting, I guess I should say. Joanna, have you got a question or a comment for
I
us?
have a couple thoughts about that, Jeff. Oh,
I saw Joanna had her hand up. I don't know.
You did at the meeting previously agree to continue this hearing. It's in the minutes, you voted on it. So this is a continuation of the hearing.
Well, except on our formal agenda posted online, it doesn't say that it's a continuation of this hearing. It simply says that we're getting updates from Wesley. I think in the paper, the legal notice, it did say a hearing. So there's that kind of a disconnect. And I don't want us to end up in a situation where there is some procedural error here that would bring our conversation into question.
So, Mr. Breckel,
Jeff, I have
here.
I have a suggestion about that.
Go ahead,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Hale.
Can you? So we said we were going to continue the hearing. I think we're not going to get in trouble with anyone if we can continue the hearing, i.e. take additional testimony tonight if there is any, receive additional information if there is any, and then continue it further. In other words, keeping the door open doesn't aggrieve anybody. Closing the door, making a decision tonight, that could be problematical, and I don't think anyone is thinking that we would do that. We had also asked the applicant to come back with a revised proposal, and I don't see a revised proposal in the agenda packet. So there's no way we're going to make a decision tonight because we're still waiting for a revised proposal from the applicant. So taking some more testimony tonight. I know we have written testimony here from Skamania Lodge. I don't think anybody is going to mind if we keep the door open and let testimony in, but don't take any action.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
Other
thought.
thoughts?
Yeah, so Mr. Breckel, Mr. Hales, that's exactly correct. You can't vote on something that's not on your agenda. So and I didn't read the publication, I apologize, Mr. Breckel, I did see your email, but it was right before I was heading out the door for something else. So yes, you cannot take action if you haven't put it on your agenda in the publication. And if there's a disconnect between the two, the publication is going to control as opposed to what your agenda says. So the legal notice would control. If it simply says you're continuing the hearing, yes, Mr. Hales is correct. Take additional testimony, additional evidence. Then you obviously set this out at a further date for final review and discussion by the planning commission. That's your procedural issue.
Thank you, Robert. I think that really helps, in terms of the question that I had, just to make sure that, we're all in sync here in terms of what it is we need to be doing to get to a decision. So at this point in time, I would reopen the hearing. And again, as we do this, I want to go through our appearance of fairness disclosures. The one asking each of the planning commission members to weigh in as to whether or not they've had any ex parte contact on this. Whether or not you have any.
Sorry to interrupt. If we're not making a decision, we don't need to do that. If we're just taking new testimony, we don't have to do an appearance.
Well, you don't. I mean, we did it when we opened the original hearing.
Well, that's because it was a proposal to be voted on.
Yeah.
What happened?
Which we continued. So if we can't vote on it tonight, we don't need to do an appearance of fairness.
Whoops.
Okay, you folks comfortable with that?
Yes, Mr. Zettler's
Yeah, we
correct.
did it initially, and it's
That's yours. I feel like I should be sitting in the city attorney's spot. I'm sorry. Wearing different hats today. We're different hats. So Mr. Zettler is correct. Obviously, you're taking more testimony, you're entertaining it, you may have discussion amongst yourselves. But so long as you are not voting, concluding, or taking action on a CUP at this point, you don't need to go through has anybody met with anybody? Has anybody been swayed by any way? Anybody received $5 or $10 to make a vote? So I'll take $5.
Thank
You
you,
can make
Robert.
more money doing that than more people apply.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, let's continue this hearing. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to Wesley Houston to share the additional information that he may have for us. Charlie, I also think that we did see information posted late this afternoon, I think, or this afternoon sometime, with sort of a revised site plan, and it looked like some operational procedures. I don't know whether you had a chance to see those or not, but at this point in time, Wesley, you want to?
I've not seen those. They weren't in the packet.
Yeah, we're having email delay issues still.
Yeah, I apologize. I emailed you this morning, but didn't realize it still wasn't working.
So we will make sure that that information does get out to you so that you do have it. But Wesley, I want to give you this opportunity to walk us through, what you've got for us, the updates you've made since our last conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you again for another evening of your time on this. I apologize for not getting this stuff to you guys sooner. It was nonstop 16-hour days for the last 2.5 weeks, and I didn't get this stuff finished until yesterday evening. So I included in that or uploaded to Cloud Permit a revised site plan that I drew up. This is not pencil on paper, but a little more professional. And I added all the different elements that we discussed at the last meeting, things that I verbalized. I actually, basically put them on paper. I also, submitted, a list of camp rules, that any campers staying on the property would be, held to. And, I'm assuming no one's really seen any of that stuff, based on this email situation. What would you like me to elaborate on? Go through a quick, run through the site plan, quick run through the rules? What's most helpful for you guys?
I think it would be useful, Wesley, if you just kind of ran through, what changes you made or how you've changed that proposal. That will sort of, I think, lay the groundwork. So when folks get that paperwork that many of them haven't seen yet, it will make sense, perhaps a little bit more clearly for them.
Okay, so with that original proposal, I guess the biggest change would be after discussion with the county, it looks like I would be putting restroom facility, since there's no sewer, that would be hooked to a new septic field or drain field and septic tank. So the sites would no longer be quote unquote primitive or dry sites like I described in my application. With the restroom addition on the site plan, you'll notice that I made mention of adhering to all the different various setbacks, front, side, and rear of the property. In addition to setbacks, I included a rendering of the fire department turnaround. And that turnaround is basically a hammerhead situation. If you've ever looked at the IFC codes, they call this an alternate to the hammerhead turnaround. Other than that, I've located on the site plan the liquid propane gas fire pit, communal fire pit. I've also located the optional wood fire pit, both of which are of adequate size, obviously adhering to any sort of burn ban. If the wood option is if we make use of that. Let's see, I'm just going to go through the rules since you haven't seen this. It'd be a standard check-in, 2 p.m. Out at 12 p.m. Vehicles, tents, equipment are keeping all these access roads clear, especially that the fire turnaround lane and any access on and off the property. Vehicles are going to be parked in their assigned spaces. There aren't going to be random vehicles parked all over the property. And one thing that I'd like to mention, I don't have this in writing, but as you know, I'm operating a nursery on the property. These 17 sites, I'm counting those as parking spaces, as in there will not be vehicles on the property in addition to what would be parking in these 17 different spots. So if I'm granted the ability to put these 17 sites or the 17 campsites on the property, there are not going to be another 10 vehicles, 15 vehicles, 17 vehicles. There's not going to be 30 something vehicles floating around on this property. This is what I'm seeing and using as my personal capacity for the property. So again, vehicles, any vehicle, whether camping, day use, in and out for an hour, they will be parking in those assigned spaces. Use of self-contained recreational vehicles, sanitation, bathing, cleaning facilities will be enforced. So that's the bring your equipment in, use your own shower, cooking, and cleaning facilities. If you have none, you will be using the on-site restrooms, showers, and sinks that are provided. Generator use allowed 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with cooperative Inc. host permission only.
So I've probably camped on my property between 75 and 100 days. I have not received one single complaint. I've pulled a trailer up there. I've used a 2000 Honda generator, super quiet. I use the batteries that are built into the trailer. Never been a problem. If that is something that's going to get someone's feathers ruffled, it would ruffle mine just as much if someone shows up with, a Caterpillar generator worthy of running the city in a blackout. That's not what's intended. And if I need to, in writing, illustrate that I would be ensuring that is not happening, that's it right there. Cooperative host permission only for use on generators.
Back to generators, state parks require generators to be 50 dB or less. Are you gonna have that restriction?
I would have to see what the Honda generator that I have is the quietest generator on the market. And if that's not quiet enough, I would have to research that, but
That is, but many generators are not.
okay. As far as the generators are concerned, I'm anticipating someone that shows up in a fully self-contained vehicle with the generator inside the vehicle with soundproofing, and you can't hear it from here to the blue car parked out there.
Then you'll restrict generators to only in self-contained units and not out in the open.
This is where, if this being a conditional use permit, if those are conditions that I have to meet, or, I'm willing to do that. So if a self-contained generator or anything 50 decibels or less or something like that, needs to be in writing, yes, I can do all of the above. I would say, since I don't have power on the property, since I'm the landowner, I would say something that might have to fall outside of that restriction would be when I'm using an electric jackhammer or something like that, where I have to run a larger generator or something for site maintenance, I guess I could say. But as far as camping goes, yeah, I'm happy to work with any of those conditions. As far as fires, as I mentioned last time verbally, I'm not picturing 17 fire pits for 17 different sites. I don't want to have to manage that. So I would be providing a communal liquid propane gas fire pit. If the burn ban is not in place or recreational fires are permitted, I will have one specific location that has at least 35 feet of cleared space around it to have that recreational fire with the 2-foot diameter. And that's it. And there's no fire beyond that on the property, unless obviously, again, if I'm working on the property and I have a burn permit and have to burn green waste. Quiet hours, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Pretty standard. Dogs must be on a leash. There's no unattended dogs on the property. They are not allowed in the hop yard. They're not going to roam. Maximum 6 people per campsite. Do not disturb or feed local wildlife. Trash must be disposed of in provided receptacles. No smoking allowed, no fireworks allowed, no drones allowed. And then, as I mentioned last time, whatever the conditions of this use permit are, the conditional use permit is something that campers are going to have to acknowledge. And again, the plan is these are all customers of the nursery. This will be booked in a public setting, but there will not be anyone on this property that has not gone through me first and acknowledged these conditions and rules.
The septic system exists already,
No, the septic system would be new.
and so that's gonna be built to handle over 100 people.
Yes, well, it's going to be built to handle the restroom. I don't see any reason, there'd be a couple sites that could potentially dump into this. But yes, it will be oversized compared to say like a residential septic system. So,
The
and then.
restroom's two restrooms.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
The restroom is just two restrooms.
Right, but I'm thinking of how many
Yeah.
people could be on the site at one
Yeah.
time. There could be over 100 people.
Easily, huh?
so, just one note on the septic, setup, the septic system and location that I planned for. It looked like the Skamania County septic calculator and information pages were all down yesterday when I was trying to look at those. So what's penciled out there is not, it is, each one of those drain fields is 75 feet long. So this is over adequate for what's required. I would obviously just be putting in what's required for the county. Other than that, we addressed bringing water, making water accessible to campers on the property. Any other questions relative to the site plan that you probably haven't really seen except for about 5 minutes ago, or the rules?
I just have one question about, power. You're not gonna provide power at the restrooms for lighting or anything?
That'd all just be solar power. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Just the, my vision is fewer amenities. If I'm being required to put restrooms, that's fine, but fewer amenities, no power brings the amplification of the experience down.
Yeah.
It's, every campground, RV site, location you've been to, if there's power, it is just loud for some reason. You go to walk through a primitive campsite, it's quiet. Everyone's there just for the nature of it, not running the television and the air conditioner and everything in their trailer. So the fewer amenities that I offer, again, restroom, if that makes sense, it just brings an amplification of things down.
Yeah, I was just concerned about it, especially the ADA bathroom and being able to see it.
Yeah, solar, would be my plan there, for sure.
I would, I'd put that on your site plan just as a
Okay,
little footnote.
okay. And then, when would be the best time to maybe respond to some of the concerns from the lodge? We hadn't had a chance to chat, but I did, 9:30 last night, when I submitted those or uploaded those, files to Cloud Permit, I did notice that there was a letter from the lodge. Should I address that now, or, I know there were some concerns there.
Can I ask a
Well,
question, Jeff? Like a procedural question?
Sure.
At the beginning, you asked for public comment for anything that wasn't the CUP.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure if there was any comment for the CUP, that would happen at some point, maybe. I wasn't sure if we should hear that before him. I just wasn't sure. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and I think, our normal procedure has been to give the applicant, the time to make, their presentation. Okay. And, I would think, since none of us have had the comments from Skamania Lodge for, much time. And Wes, I know you haven't, you've been out of town. I don't think you should feel compelled to address those, at this session. If we're going to continue this hearing to the next one, it might be easier for you to take a look at those and formulate your response to those comments and share them with us at the next meeting, at the next hearing, as we continue it for hopefully a decision-making process. Does that work for you too, Mandy?
Yeah, I was just making sure we didn't miss it. Sorry. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And at this point, I would entertain folks that want to speak in favor of this project.
Don't you want to hear from Skamania Lodge?
Well, gee, he's not in favor, I don't think.
Yeah. And that's, it's hard for me to see the group there, but my sense is there's no one in the audience tonight that wants to speak in favor of this particular proposal. So with that, I would ask if there are folks that want to speak in opposition to what's being proposed here.
I do. I know you can't see me.
Kara's hand is raised.
For the record, would you state your name and that you're a resident of the city of
Thank you.
Stevenson?
My name is Kara Owen. I'm a resident of the city of Stevenson and also the general manager for Skamania Lodge. Obviously, we are not in favor of this. We feel that the SR zoning designation is not set right for this. And hold on, I lost my other page of notes. It's not consistent with the SR zoning. It's not compatible with what's going on around it, considering the lodge surrounds this on 3 sides. And there are some proposed, I think, being in a dark campground with no lighting, and no plan across there certainly doesn't sort of fit within the nature of what we've got going on around there. I too just got a copy of these, so I scanned them really quickly. When I look at, beyond the fact that this area is not zoned for that, it's a residential area, and I'm not sure, is this in city limits?
Yes.
So
Yes,
then
it is.
that also runs into the fact of how can we be putting septic in when everyone has to be attached to the city sewer when you're in the city limits like we are? It's not there.
It depends on which area you live in, and it's not a requirement that everyone hook to the sewer. There's some places that
The sewer line
sewer
is too
doesn't
away
even
from
run.
property.
Foster Creek doesn't have a sewer line going up it right now, so the current ordinance is you have to be abutting the property in order to be required to tie into the sewer. That's the current version.
Where's the sewer, I'm sorry, where's the sewer line in relation to your golf shack area? That's on sewer, right? So it is close.
Yeah, I want to check with Cody.
Oh.
He just said there's not a line that runs up there.
Okay.
I was just, and I'm not, I have to look at the map to confirm,
You have
but
to confirm that.
Interesting that the standard is different. Obviously, he addressed the issue of restroom facilities. I would say the sanitary dump station, dump requirements. Yes, there's receptacles, but how are we getting rid of those? Who's picking those up? We have to formulate all those things. I think it mentions in here that somehow there's going to be a host, but it still seems that there's no enforceable mechanism to ensure compliance to all the rules that are being stated here. While there's a noise ordinance in the city from 10 to 7, how again are you can control that if you have complaints or things like that, which we have to do. The no lighting is concerning. Surprising to me that the Hammerhead fire route works, because it did not work for us. And in fact, we could not open our new facilities until we had a way for the fire truck to completely go around. So I think it's interesting that, again, the practices would be different. And so we delayed our opening on our presence because we could not have a Hammerhead turnaround in the fireplace. I think what's also interesting is that there's nothing requiring the applicant to do a traffic impact analysis, which we did, to have a fire protection assessment done, which we did, to look at stormwater and critical areas, which we did, and also had to put in a number of things to control both runoff water and make sure we were keeping everything safe. We had a geo review and we have protected wetlands in our area. And so it would be strange for me to not see something adjacent to us we have quite a number of protected areas on our thing. And then it still doesn't quite show an operational management plan. Like, how does that work? How are you staffing that? Are these people volunteers? Are they paid people that are going to be on site? So again, how are we controlling what's happening in this residential area? I do think the notice has addressed a few of the public health and sanitation concerns, but I think there needs to be more detail around that, just to have some security within that. does present some inconsistencies with city policies regarding transient uses, whether you look at downtown or residential areas. I think it would set a precedence on zoning integrity in the area. So I think we have to be careful of that. So in conclusion, we respectfully request the planning commission deny the conditional use permit. And if they are gonna move forward at all, you would have to have the impact analysis done, the operational management plan, fire protection and wildlife. So if there's no power going there, are we gonna have a fire hydrant on the property in order if something should happen? Cause obviously there's a lot of property nearby that if we didn't contain that or control that, that could do a lot of damage in the area. And then the geotechnical review. So those are my comments to share with the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for her? Hearing none. We have anybody else who would wish to speak to this particular topic?
Mary Ricard has her hand raised.
Mary.
Thank you, Mary Rapar and Stevenson. Wesley has answered a lot of the questions from last time, but this project just doesn't get any better with answering questions. SR is residential and the campground is not residential. And I took his campsite, and if you had 6 people on 17 campsites, you have 102 people possible there. Not that it would happen, but it's a possibility. And you could even have more because people don't know how to count when they don't want to. So, and the other question is, I would like to know more about the sewer situation. We have sewer in our city, and I believe our ordinance says if you're within 300 feet, you have to connect. The state ordinance or state RCW says 200. Your attorney can correct me. So 300 feet is, that's pretty good. And so is there actually a sewer line near where he should be connected to?
Yeah, Ms. Rapar, I think you participated in many of our meetings involving that sewer ordinance. Now it's no longer the 300 feet, so the verbiage is abuts. So the way the verbiage was changed, the idea was to take away the expense and cost associated with somebody who would have to connect. Say they're 250 feet away, they'd have to trench and dig and connect over 250 feet. I believe that was the council's decision when they revised the ordinance to remove that portion of the ordinance. Now the definition is it must abut to require connection. And now, and I personally don't know without looking at the map if sewer is running.
But the RCW says 200.
It's over 1,200 feet away.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm,
So-
Yeah, okay. Well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. But I believe that state law probably trumps city law. So 200 feet, whatever. So, yeah, there's a lot that this, you want somebody to be happy doing what they're doing. But this does just not feel like a good fit for that portion of Foster Creek Road and Rock Creek. It's a residential area. Our comprehensive plan states that we, after much bloodbath, we have a small town feeling. And campgrounds don't belong in the middle of residential areas with a big destination hotel on 3 sides. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I think there are just way too many questions about this proposal. And 17 campsites, that's a lot of people and a lot of RVs and a lot of vehicles too. And that fire thing, I think the fire marshal should be the one to designate that. Because I remember what they did up on Jordan, Street. And that it was too narrow and didn't have a turnaround, and there were rules for fire trucks. They have to be able to turn around, not back up and do maneuvers. They have to be able to go all the way around. So I would suggest that's a big, a worry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anybody else? So at this point in time, I think we'll continue this hearing until our next meeting. Mandy, I have a question for you, and that's SEPA applicability here. Is this a project that would require completion of a SEPA checklist and a threshold determination?
Good question. No, it does not, because critical areas have to be present. There's no wetlands or creeks on the property. And a geo isn't required because no clearing has to be done. It's somewhat developed where he's putting the sites. So, and flat, and the roads are already there. So no clearing or grading would have to be done besides installing a septic. But initially, yeah, we walked the property with the public works director and the environmental health specialist. And so it's, if it were to be passed, it's very limited or low impact as far as construction. There's none to be done, no trees to be removed, nothing like that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Jeff?
Yes.
If you're gonna have over 200 people, health and safety says 2 restrooms is fine.
Yes, this is, the environmental health required what he added to.
Okay, perfect. And has the fire marshal seen the road plan?
The turnaround was designed, he hasn't been there in person, he told us to do this. He hasn't inspected it, the public works director did.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and walked and we, gave him the advice of how and where to do it. But we can definitely have him go look at it before the next hearing and give what he thinks. For sure.
I personally would like that, especially when Kara talked about the lodge had one parameter and this has a different, that kind of.
Yeah, no problem. We can definitely do that.
That was it, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or thoughts from the Planning Commission that we would like to see addressed when we come back to this, when we reopen this hearing in April?
Mr. Breckel, just for purposes
I
of
certainly want to review
completeness
what's
here, you
been
just need to
submitted,
close the
but-
public hearing on this. So, sorry, Charlie, or Mr. Hales, but Mr. Breckel, if you would simply, on the record, close the public comment for this person.
I think we're simply continuing this hearing until next month.
You will republish this though, and you'll have new public comment then. So I'm simply saying for your record here this evening, you want to close the public comment because now your staff is reporting to you and providing you with questions and comments.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come back up, whenever you do put it on for a vote itself, you would have an additional public comment period at that time.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. Charlie, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, that's fine. And I think he wants you to close the public hearing. I agree with his advice. So we should do that. And then we can have a couple comments too.
Sure. So let's close this public hearing at 6:44. And any further discussion, questions from the Planning Commission?
None from me.
As I was going to say, I just want to review the materials that have been submitted, and once we get the email system working again, yay! Let's hope that day comes soon, and we can look at these materials well in advance and see if they've addressed the concerns that have been raised both by the Planning Commission and by the public.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I'll add one more if I'm allowed. Am I allowed, Robert?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes.
You're in essence staff and you're asking a question and council or your commission would then give you direction.
Okay. I just want to clarify for the record that if a campground was not allowed, we wouldn't be here. If it was said prohibited or anything that's not listed is prohibited. In this zoning, it's actually listed as allowed with conditions. So, you know, that's why we're here, is for everyone to decide if it's compatible, you know, and all the other things that you have the burden of deciding. But I just wanted to clarify for people, you know, when they make comment that this shouldn't be allowed, it's like, well, the code says you might, you know, so.
Does the code actually list any of the conditions that must be met?
Good advice.
Or is it?
So in the staff report, I went through the entire Stevenson code to grab anything I could that I felt was relevant. No, it does not talk about standards for campgrounds specifically. So I did what I could with what's there.
So we're kind of making up
Yeah.
that as we go along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your conditional use permit application does have its parameters though. That's where you have to look at the broad picture. Yes, it's allowed or permitted to have a campground, but does it meet the other elements? Is it materially detrimental to adjacent properties? Does it create a public health or safety concerns, generate excessive traffic, noise, and nuisance conditions? Those are the elements to which you as a commission then make your decision. So. when
And
Ms.
those are in
Martin
the
was
staff
simply
report for
saying
the
that,
reminder.
yes,
Yep.
you can put a campground in here. What is it? Is it a single campground? Is it 17 units? What's the difference? How do you describe that? That's all for the commission to decide.
Are there permitting conditions for this? Building conditions, obviously there's gonna be engineering on the septic that has to be met.
Yes.
Will we have a list of those conditions that have to be met that are actually physical
So-
and building type of?
Yeah, those are great questions. So at the next one, when you're preparing to make a decision, one of the hard parts that you all have to do is obviously someone can make a motion if they want to deny it outright, none of it, or make a motion in ways that you're comfortable defending to your constituents. So you can look at the staff report, you can look at everything Mr. Heston has presented and say, in motion to, and sorry if I don't mean to be condescending, it's just I don't know how long it's been since you've done it, to present to each other what you think you're all comfortable with, and you can make up those rules how you want. But for the bathroom facilities, that building, that would have a building permit. That would just be, if this got approved, that's just natural next step, that he would have to have a building permit for the bathroom facility. He would have to go through all the proper permitting process for the environmental health department. So a septic designer, you know, all the inspections, the installation, all the inspections, yes.
So then is the decision to approve or not approve made before those applications are made and complete? Or
Yes.
You make them with conditions.
Uh-huh.
So ultimately, if the commission says, yes, we want to move forward with it, but we want 1 through 10 satisfied. You've now approved a CUP that has conditions. If those conditions are not met, then the CUP would not be issued by ultimately the planner itself. Both sides, any party could then appeal and absolutely go to council as well for the council to approve. Typically, council reviews planning commission with high regard and respects the decisions that are made. At least in my 12 years on, I think only one time did we ever make an adjustment to a planning commission decision. However, then either party, applicant or an affected party, could appeal that to the hearings officer, and a hearings officer would ultimately then make a decision on that. Either party doesn't like the hearings officer, can take it to the Superior Court in Skamania County. There's the process.
Okay, so when I'm trying to be fair and impartial here, I'm looking at the planning for sewers in the city and what we're looking for in the future. And then I'm looking at a septic system that's being installed, and it may be perfect, engineered perfect, but to handle the number of people at that campsite. But I'm uneasy with the fact that we're moving in a substantial septic system, putting that in place when our real goal is to eliminate septic systems in the city. Is that a fair thing to reject it for, even though it has no, it's really my opinion.
I prefer not to step on the commission's decision-making unless you're outside the purview. You would be within the purview if you wanted to make that decision, but yes, you do have the issue of the city as a whole has been trying to balance the sewer issues and septics. There was a moratorium for 6 months. I believe Wes was actually on the committee, right? Helped out when we went through that process of.
Canceled my, single family residence build,
Yeah.
and then, yes, I was on that.
So there was a period of time where the city council was looking at whether or not we were gonna enforce the 300 feet or the 200 feet. Then we put a moratorium on septics, and they lifted the moratorium on septics, and they came up with what the new ordinance is that's in place right now. And that ordinance is in effect currently, however, there's a moratorium on the fines and penalties that are assessed under that ordinance for the time being. So city council and its members are still reviewing that issue. So if you were to ask me from a legal standpoint, could you simply reject because it has a septic system? That would be in your purview as a direction against this conditional use permit, because it is conditional. It's conditioned on meeting elements that the planning commission is imposing.
Okay, how difficult would it be to get the projections on when we're gonna have sewers in that area and when we might be able to comply with that? I'm not saying,
Well,
I'm
when
only asking how
when the money
difficult
truck
it'd be to
gets
get.
stopped in the city of Stevenson, we'll have sewer everywhere we possibly can. But my understanding is that that's obviously a financial issue. There's some, other financial issues that are in front of city council right now that need resolution before we start adding more sewer lines. It's still in the mix, it's still in the discussion, and obviously this council is taking that ordinance under great review and scrutiny right now.
So the catch-22 is that you want that, all of it to move forward with sewers, and that's the direction we want to go. But if it's so far out that we're gonna inhibit current development, then that becomes problematic in itself.
Correct. You're making a decision based on a forecast, as Ms. Rapar even pointed out, the city has a comprehensive plan, we developed it over many, many meetings, it's probably due for a nice refresh, but if you were to go back and look at the comprehensive plan, which I haven't looked at in a few years, Ms. Rapar may know it off his hand, if it is, we want to get people off of septics, that's something else that you could consider in your decision making. But that's, again, you go look at the comprehensive plan to determine that.
Okay,
And you didn't see my email because you didn't get it, but, I said, if you were to make a decision to move forward with a list of, let's say, 20 conditions, then I amend my staff report in red, adding every condition that you gave, and then re-release that. It's part of the file. You have a copy. It's on record of everything that has to be followed. You know, like with the septic, a condition be, let's just say it has to be inspected annually by environmental health to make sure it's not too full. You know, anything you come up with can be done,
So long as it's not arbitrary and capricious.
right?
And Tony, at the last meeting, I asked city staff which is not here any longer, to provide us with a map in the area of where the sewer is.
Yeah.
And we didn't receive that.
I will,
okay.
It used to be on the wall.
you all.
I think,
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
because that's a concern.
Yeah.
I'll get that to you.
I think
And make
going
sure you
back
guys have email. Okay.
to-
Actually, you need first.
to the conversation with regard to sewer and when sewer may be available, you know, in some of our planning, I think probably even as Wesley remembers, and a number of us do, we know that once the city identifies an area it wants to serve with sewer, which it has not yet done yet in terms of a comprehensive, phased approach for expanding sewer services, it could be as much as 5 to 7 years before that sewer is available in terms of the engineering, the funding that's needed to do it, the construction, et cetera. So we're not talking about, I suspect, and unless the sewer is very close to this site now, anything that is going to immediately have an immediate impact on this particular project.
So then I have another question to follow on to that. Is there a limitation on the number of new septic systems that are allowed to be put in the city?
Not right now.
No.
Is there a concern about doing that?
Again, I'm not an elected official at this point, so the 5 members of city council, I know that that is a discussion that's in the forefront. It's coming up almost at every meeting. Whether or not the council itself has made an ultimate decision on which way they want to go, I could not opine on that as it's just the legal counsel for them. But I believe if you follow the minutes, that is a topic of concern.
Okay.
No.
Procedurally, they have to do the soil pit tests for inspection to make sure soil viable.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the moratorium came because our sewer system was working at or over capacity. And now that we have the new sewer system, it's freed up our ability to increase, incoming sewer. So it's a little bit different than it was 2 years ago. We're just in the mindset of what we're trying to do.
There are large areas of the city that are not served by the sewer currently. Charlie and I looked at that when we were looking at whether or not we should be considering even annexations. And so how we serve those areas is something yet to be determined, and where are those priorities? But I think the recognition is there's a trade-off here in terms of what do you do with septic systems? If you're not going to be able to serve an area with sewer in the next 10 to 15 years, do you foreclose any residential development on those lands? Or do you allow them to go ahead and install a septic system with the notice that, if sewer is available, they will ultimately have to hook up?
I mean, currently, that's the way it's written.
Yeah.
I think there's a latecomer agreement.
Yeah.
And is commercial property treated any differently
Yeah.
for septic systems?
Yes, it is.
So is this
It's not
conditional use
commercial.
permit being treated as commercial property or residential for the purposes of the septic system?
It's zoned as a SR, right? And
Right.
just adjoining it to you have a different zoning for the lodge itself, so. Commercial use is typically not allowed. Again, that's why it's a conditional use permit. And in the code, we do say campgrounds, as Ms. Hartle pointed out, so that's allowed with conditions. Those conditions can expand or contract based on how, planning commission wants to address them.
So are we applying the code for a commercial septic system or for a residential septic system here?
Well, from a legal standpoint, you're in a hybrid spot. I'm sorry, I guess.
I mean, that's up to us. That's one of the questions, is kind of new territory.
Yes.
And so it's, where do we want to go forward? And what kind of restrictions do we want to put in a conservative manner going forward?
Mr. Sellers, exactly right. That's the condition you could place on it. Mr. Houston, though, could come back and say, hey, I've had a study done. I believe the septic that I'm proposing will satisfy the use and treatment that's necessary, and this commission could say, we don't like that report, or we heard a different report. That's again, something that the commission would have to decide.
Okay. Is a report like that forthcoming?
That would have to be.
That would be something the commission would need to ask the applicant.
Unless we want
as
to
a
become
deliverable.
professionals in sewer septic system, I would default to Department of Health
Yeah.
to determine what that determination is. And I think this number is what they came up with. I mean, as I said in the last meeting, I was fairly certain it'd be 2 bathrooms and one had to be ADA, which is exactly what it came out to be.
So,
Department of Health is the person that makes the final decision on septic. Oh, not city council, not planning.
sorry,
Department of Health is the final say on that.
so will we get the Department of Health
Recommendation.
their recommendation or their engineering on?
I believe
it's
the
in the
city,
staff report.
Yeah.
That was their requirement, that at least 2 bathrooms.
But the whole report is what he's asking.
I'd like to know what the report says about the bathrooms and the septic system.
So there's no report yet. So with just the proposal that you're seeing here, he recommended at the minimum what Wesley's added. So if it were approved, then he would have to go get it designed and then all those reports would be available. but it would have to be designed to the health department's requirements.
Nobody's gonna go spend money on something they don't know that they can do. So the first step is to get the approval for a,
You know, I hear that.
yeah. So there's not gonna be any finite.
Engineers and architects all the time design and then seek approval afterwards. But what we're looking for is an approval before design.
And you could do it either way, but in a small city, we're not talking about a huge commercial development. If somebody came and wanted to build a house and they say, I want an adjustment on my frontage, we're not going to require them to have all of their engineering, all of their electrical inspections, all that beforehand making that decision.
So I can offer a good perspective, like with subdivisions, at least in the county, the preliminary idea goes to the hearing examiner first. Because we would, same concept, never ask somebody to spend, 80 grand on a road plan, to drill the wells at, 55,000 a pop before they even know they're gonna be allowed to do it. So first the idea is approved, then you have so much time that you have to get all that infrastructure engineered, installed and inspected to meet all the conditions and the requirements of the state, the county, the city, whatever it is.
Okay.
Mr. Lewis, just for historical purposes, the neighborhood you live in, the lighting plan came way late in the transaction, and the city did require that, but it was an overburden for the applicant who was seeking that development at the time. But that's an example for you in that neighborhood. The planning had gone through, but then the light plan came out from the city, and the city said, we want a bigger, more robust lighting plan than was planned. So the applicant had to spend more money. That's where it ultimately ended up.
Okay.
I think it's important to note here that this is a conditional use permit. And, if we approve this, the assumption is that it's only approved if in fact it's physically developable. In other words, if the septic doesn't perk, well, it doesn't meet that basic condition for approval of this permit. So, again, I would go back and think, I think many noted that this is can be a conditional use in an SR zone in the city of Stevenson. And Robert went back through what we have to find in order to approve a conditional use. Will not endanger the public health and safety, will not subsequently reduce the value of adjoining or abutting properties, will be in harmony in the area in which it's located, will be in conformity with the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan, and other plans officially adopted by the council. So as we go through and we look at what we get from the applicant and we look at the comments that we get from the public, that's when the planning commission comes together and says, hey, given those determinations we need to make, what findings of fact do we develop and what conditions do we place or do we deny the request? So again, I think, that's where we need to be focusing our attention.
We're gonna miss you, Jeff.
Well, I won't be far.
That's real clear.
Any other thoughts on this topic?
And just to circle back here, Mr. Breckel is correct. He is moving off of planning and on to council. That would be an incompatible office to hold both at the same time. However, the city council does have a rule that the city council can appoint an ex officio, which is a member of the city council that sits on planning only when you don't have a quorum. I had to do that 3 times over 12 years, but that's the only reason for the ex officio city council member to participate in a planning commission meeting. But yeah, with Mr. Breckel stepping off, somebody else would step on. You would have a new chair for your own planning commission. And Mr. Breckel could be appointed as the ex officio. That'd be up to the city council to determine that appointment.
That's right.
But as long as we have a quorum, we could
Yes.
continue on.
Oh, yeah. Any
that's
other,
the solar.
any other thoughts or comments on this particular agenda item? Hearing none, I would like to just take a moment because I saw that Mayor Taylor is sitting there to see if she would like to, introduce herself to the Planning Commission and share any thoughts that she may have on where we're going.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councilman Freckle.
You'd like to move on?
All right. Well, good evening. This is my first planning commission meeting, so thank you. Yeah, I've been busy as far as planning goes and working with the county, who I think it's been really great to work with, and trying to kind of muddle through our processes here and align things a little bit clearer, hopefully for you guys as well. So I do welcome your feedback on how things are going, and really want to work with you guys more, as well as we're transitioning to, and I'm looking for possibly someone to help maybe consult with long-range planning. I know that's an ongoing issue and concern, and making sure we don't lose sight of that, because that is really important. So, and with that, I'm really concerned about your emails. So we just switched over from Google over to Microsoft because it was much more secure. That switch happened about maybe a month ago, you think, or so. And so if you're still not getting emails, let me know, let Daniel know, and we'll hook you up with our IT service provider and get you online. So, okay.
I was on with them today.
Oh, good.
In
Okay.
10 minutes, they had it all.
Yeah, I think everything's broke. So,
I think it's better with Microsoft this time though,
yeah, I think.
because I tried to fix Google and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any additional business that folks want to raise? Okay, well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn here at 7:07.
One last piece of business.
Sure.
When will we send out a notice for a new planning commissioner here?
By the end of the week. And I was working on, I probably won't be in, probably don't have enough time for the next council meeting, but it'll be the next cycle that we will intervene. I guess I should say, let me back up. So I think the application then goes to you guys. I think you make a recommendation. Is that what happens?
Yeah.
And then council then
Approves.
approves it.
Mhm.
Okay, so that gives us plenty of time so we'll do the approval probably in the May council. So that gives you guys March to go through your process. So I'll kick that off by the end of the week, and probably a 2 or 3 week application process, and get that to you at your next cycle.
Great.
Good, Kim. Good question.
Obviously, if you know anybody who's interested,
Yeah.
please send there to Daniel or to Mayor Taylor.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
And can we have a member of this committee be outside the city limits, or do we
Yeah.
already have that? We
Yeah.
have that. Okay, gotcha.
That's me.
All right.
I'd motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
With enthusiasm.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Hi, motion.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you for your information. I appreciate it.
Smooth sailing, Charlie.
I don't know.
Yes, you're doing fine, Jeff. I'm glad you're getting to do the council.
Thanks, Charlie.
Real happy about that. That's great to hear. You take care.
Thank you. You too.
Lady.
Yeah, it's just easy to.
How do you bring back
This is a city project.
Okay, so,
Advisor.
yeah, nobody better try to work for it. The contract, they,
I don't, where's this?